This is the Girl Stop Playin show. I'm your favorite homegirl, Coriel, here to encourage you to stop playing with your potential and start working for what you want in life and in love. You already know that I'm bringing you the information and the conversations to help you make the money and get the honey. You can have it all as long as you are willing to work. And now, before we get into today's episode, please wipe your feet when you come in the door, okay? What do I mean? I mean, like this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are putting out this amazing content, but y'all, we got some bills to pay, okay? And all we're asking you to do is pay with a like and a subscribe. And if you feel like you got some value out of this episode, share this video with a friend, okay? Today, we have a working woman in the building. She wears many hats, has several titles. She's a wife, she's a mother, she's a real estate mogul, in my opinion. And I am super excited to have Tiana in the building. Hey,
Thank
Tia.
you.
I'm just going with first names
Okay,
because
yes,
we're on the couch
absolutely.
in the living room, about to have some girl talk. Are you ready?
Absolutely. I'm ready.
So I do want to start by having the people put some respect on your name.
Okay.
So for the people who may not be familiar, look in that camera right there and introduce yourself.
My name is Tiana Harrison. I am from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am a luxury real estate agent.
Luxury real estate agent.
Mhm.
So I've been like having this conversation with my husband about dibbling and dabbling into real estate. What is the luxury space new to Atlanta? Because when I think luxury real estate, $1 million listing comes to mind, like LA, New York. Is luxury new to Atlanta or no?
Luxury isn't new to Atlanta. I think what happens or what has happened is that culturally we are having a huge imprint on the luxury realm. And so it gives, this whole whole scope on what that luxury market entails, with social media and everything. We get to dibble and dabble into different areas of luxury just by seeing someone on vacation or seeing someone walk through a home. But as far as it being new, no, not
No, it's
really.
been
We're
there.
just able to share it a little bit more and then help and inspire other people to see that they can also
You can do it
indulge.
too. How long have you been in real estate?
I've been in real estate. It's a tricky question because there are so many different areas of real estate. I'm going into my 10th year as a real estate broker, but in real estate, in total, probably about 17 years.
Girl, stop playing.
Mm-hmm.
You are not old enough to have done anything for 17 years.
But I am.
You've lived a life.
I have lived a life, but I
Okay.
will tell you this, that right after college, I entered into real estate. I went to UGA. Well, first I went to TSU.
Shut up.
That's
How
how
did I
I
not know
know that we
this?
know some of the same
How did
people.
I not know you went to the Tennessee State University?
The Tennessee State University. I was a Tiger Bill, so I
Wow.
ran track.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
sure we have a lot of mutual
Okay,
friends.
for sure. What
And
years were you
then
there? Do
I
you
was
mind?
there from 2002 to 2004.
Oh, girl. Okay. I was there
Yeah.
from 03 to 07.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
we crossed paths,
Okay.
and we know a few of the same people.
You did not leave TSU to go to UGA.
I left TSU to go to Georgia. I don't know why. I built some of the best personal and professional relationships when I was at TSU. The reason why I am or have been successful as a real estate agent is due to the relationships that I created at Tennessee State. In all honesty,
HBCU,
seriously. Yep.
that part of the HBCU conversation is not had enough. I
No.
think we all are comparing between like the facilities and the
Right.
this and the that, but it's
No.
like the community that you will
The
build at an
community
HBCU is
is
unmatched.
huge, whether it be Slim and Huskies or some of the professional athletes that I've worked with. Brandon Williams, I'm not sure if you know Brandon Williams, but he had a very integral part in helping me with my professional athlete niche that I am somewhat known for, as far as just working with pro athletes, NFL, NBA. And so that relationship came from
TSU.
Yep.
I love it. Okay, but you left TSU, you came to UGA, and then you got into real estate after.
Yes.
Or
immediately
during.
after.
Immediately after. Okay.
Immediately after. I wish I had known during, because a lot of people don't know that you can get your real estate license at 18.
Yep.
And so I wish I always say that I wish that was something that I had known. But I did want to be a sports agent, or I wanted to go work for for a professional team of some sort in contracts and negotiations. And as life would have it, full circle, I work in contracts and
Yep, yep,
negotiations,
yep, yep.
oftentimes with pro athletes. And so, yeah, it's just like,
So what was that moment that it changed or it shifted? Like what was your entry point into real estate?
I think when I decided after my first year in corporate America that I was not going to go into law or go to law school, I said that, this is an area that I have always loved, even as a child, just going into different neighborhoods, seeing how the landscape of Atlanta has changed over time. And it was like, oh, I can do this or I can try to do it. I will tell my age here, but as we know, there was a huge recession that hit. And so, with so many different markets, as well as Atlanta, that was a major time where people were losing jobs. I lost my job and I had to figure it out. I hit the pavement. I went to go work at a high rise condominium. And I saw real estate agents every single day. I went there as a concierge supervisor, making very minimum money,
Mm-hmm.
and just started building relationships again with the people who were in and out of the condominium. That went from being a concierge to being a property manager. And again, all of those are still in
In
the
real estate.
avenue of real estate.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so that's basically how that happened. I will tell you this: we got married. My husband and I got married. We met during right before I decided that I was going to leave corporate America, and we then had our first child. Our first child, we did not. We were new parents. So it's like, who's going to go to the doctor's appointments? Who's going to stay home? And because his job was a little bit more stable and he was making leaps and bounds in his position, it was like, okay, you go venture out. So I decided that I was going to go into real estate at that time. And then,
Got you.
10 years later, here I
The
am.
rest is
Mm-hmm.
history. You mentioned a couple times about the relationships.
Uh-huh.
And I think personally, I can only speak for myself, but I did not know the value in true I don't want to say like being strategic with your relationships because that sounds like you're using people, but being just knowing the value of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Even back to like people who had internships in college and were
Yep.
able to start those relationships in corporate and what it's done for their careers. Nobody talked to me about relationship building. It's something that I've learned just naturally as an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, I've learned the value and the benefit of networking and establishing relationships and connecting with people. What does it look like for you now to connect or build relationships? Because you mentioned like when you were at the condo building,
That's right.
building relationships with the realtors. And what does that look like for someone out there who's at that place where it's now time for them to start building relationships? What are like some practical things of how you actually do that?
You know what? I'll tell you why that's a challenging question, because the reality is, like, at the time, you don't know that
This
you're
is what you're
built,
doing.
that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you don't know the value that's really there, other than I just want to be authentic. I just want to create relationships with the people who are for me. I want to make sure that I'm doing whatever steps I need, or taking whatever steps I need to take so that I am successful. And in that, when you're making good choices or making decisions for your future that will pan out or have longevity, then you're thinking about, okay, well, how am I responding to people? How are they responding to me? Are they pouring into me? And so I think that when I did go into real estate and I was at the condominium and I was meeting all of these different people, they were actually sharing with me their lives. And then that helped me kind of figure out what I wanted to do. Real estate was never something that I thought that I was going to do, but it was just being in the right place at the right time, and seeing people continue to move and maneuver and navigate in a space that, there was you didn't know what was going to come out of the recession.
What does it look like now, 10 years later, at this point in your career? What does um, nurturing relationships look like? Because everything is relationships, right?
Everything is
Real
relationship.
estate is relationships
Yeah,
on steroids.
absolutely.
What does nurturing relationships look like at this stage in your career? Is
Uh,
it Because I've heard people say, okay, well, I have follow-up Friday. On Fridays, I'm just following up with all the people. I'm checking in, I'm tapping in, I'm letting people know I'm thinking about them. They're on my mind. That's my check-in day.
Yeah.
That's how I keep relationships going. Do you have a thing like that where it's like, this is my thing to nurture these relationships or to water all of the relationships on this particular day or in this particular way?
You know what? I don't have a day. You know, I know that sometimes life gets to lifing, and as mothers, as wives, as businesswomen, entrepreneurs, you just gotta, sometimes when you think of that person, you gotta call them at that moment. You know, when there is business, there are strategies, tools, and systems that you have. If there's a client that you care about, that you want to get them the home of their dreams, or you want to help them hit objectives that they never thought that they could, you're gonna follow up. That's just in you, you know, or it should be, because that's intentional. It's not about the paycheck at the end of the day for me, you know, and I do have the luxury to say that, you know, I'm doing this from my heart. Yes, thank you for me being able to bring something to the table, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I don't, you know, when you think about it, and I don't always hit the mark, you know, so it's a matter of, you know, being intentional with your life, not allowing, and I tell my children this, you know, you got to have priorities. And if you say that the people, you say that your family, you say that your friends are your priority, then you will make the call. You will send the text, even if it's a text. Some people are callers, some people are texters. But when it comes time to really pour into people or check up on people, then you need to be intentional.
Are you a caller or a texter?
I am a texter.
So, do you still pick up the phone and call people?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, because some things need a
You
phone
have
call,
to.
but
Okay.
I'm also married to a caller.
I'm married to a
So,
FaceTimer.
are you?
And that is,
I didn't
yeah,
even think about that
that's a thing.
category.
It's a category because I am historically a texter. Do
Oh
not
my
call my
goodness,
phone.
yeah.
But he started this FaceTime trend, and
Oh.
it's 6 years going strong. It's just what we do.
Mm.
I don't want to say I've never, but I can count on one hand the number of times
Yeah.
we've had like a regular phone call.
Oh.
Even if we're not looking at each other, we're just naturally gonna FaceTime. It's weird. I don't know. We're weird.
Yeah, no,
But I
I'm
want to talk
okay
about
with
your
it.
husband because
Okay.
this is a thing. The
Mhm.
people think that here in the great city of Atlanta, there are no husbands.
Yeah.
There's only gay men.
Yeah.
We are proof that that is not true.
Uh,
But where did you meet your husband?
Okay, so I met my husband at a nightclub.
Girl, me too. Find love in the club. You can do it. Usher was onto something.
Listen, I met him at a
Girl, what
nightclub.
club was it? Do you remember?
Listen, now we
You're
going
gonna age
into
yourself.
uncharted
You're
territory.
like, okay,
Yeah,
wait.
uncharted territory. This is Atlanta. This is Atlanta.
Okay.
So
Okay.
during an era
The-
where
a time.
it was magical.
A time. Okay, got you. Okay.
So I met him, but he actually Facebooked me before I met him during the time when
Okay.
only college students
We're
had.
on Facebook, the good old days.
Yeah, the good old days. And so I knew him, and from him being at Georgia when I was there, but he was 2 years older than me. So he had left.
Okay.
And so when I met him, he was like, "Hey, do you remember me?" And I was like, "Yeah," but because I had never seen him in person, and sent him a drink. And that was the best investment that was the best $20.
Right. I'm like, that was the best look.
$20 that I ever,
Not you out
invested
in the
in.
streets sending out drinks.
Sent him a drink, and it
I
was
love
over.
that. I love that for you.
But I'm a good investor.
Yeah. Okay. So you met him out. How
Mhm.
long did you date before you got engaged?
We dated. So we did not date the first year that we met. And
Okay.
then
So
we
you
were
sent
friends.
him a drink and then y'all became friends?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
You know, I was in my hot girl summer era. And so
That was a season,
in my
wasn't it?
20s
Yes.
it was a season, and I'm okay with that because he was in his, his NFL season as
Got you.
well.
Okay.
And so then after a year or so, we decided that we were gonna date, and then I think we were engaged. We were engaged for a year, so we dated for 2 years before we actually got married.
Got you. Okay. And then how soon did you have your first child?
We were pregnant 3 months after we got married, so she was about a year.
Was it planned or did
It was
just...
not planned. We were in CVS and Walgreens looking to see how to do things the right way, and I was already pregnant.
You were already
I was already pregnant.
That's crazy because I got engaged in April of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, we were supposed to get married December 2020. So I'm like, okay, by August, I'm going to start like preparing my body
Mm-hmm.
to get pregnant. I ordered like this fertility tea off of Amazon, girl.
Yeah.
Ordered it off of Amazon. The day it arrived is the day I found out I was pregnant.
See?
Got pregnant in June. Girl, didn't
God
even
knew.
make it. God knew. I
God knew.
was devastated. It was
Yeah.
bad. It was not good. Yours was good because you were obviously already married.
Yeah.
I was only engaged.
That's
That bug
okay.
bit me, right?
Yeah.
That bug bit me, and
Mm-hmm.
life started lifing.
Yeah.
But how did becoming a parent affect your relationship with your husband, or did it?
I think becoming a parent made us like even more inseparable. I feel like we were inseparable the moment we said that we were going to be together, just because of so many different life changes. Him coming out of the NFL and having to transition, and then just like I said, just going from a job that I had been at after college to something different because of the economy, and so then we get married and have our first child. And it's like, we in this together. So it was a few years, and this is all pre-social media,
Mm-hmm.
pre-Instagram. Let me just say that social media existed. But we just basically hunkered down, tried to figure out how we were going to make things work. Bought a house, bought a townhouse, sold it, bought another house, with having our daughter, and it was like we were underground for a few years before it was like, okay, now it's time to like really get out here.
Come back outside. How old? You have 3 children.
2.
Two. Why did I think you had 3?
Because I always have other people's kids.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I know I didn't saw another child. Okay, so you have 2 children. How old are they now?
Yes, they're 7 and 9. They're about to be, look, 8 and 10 next month.
Okay, so mine are 2 years apart too. So I have questions about that. But you have a
Yeah.
boy and a girl.
Yes.
You posted, I don't know what was going on, and we don't even have to get into the details of it, but you posted that I think your son was having a health challenge.
Yes.
Something was going on.
Yes.
Don't know the details of it. And again, we don't have to talk about the details of it. But what I saw was just in my mind, I don't know when this was, but I feel like I was a mother at this time. And I just remember thinking of like, how do you hold it together when your child is experiencing something that you cannot get them out of
Oh my God.
or be in control of?
Oh my God. Being a mother is challenging. Nobody gives us a handbook on being a mother. We all know that. Nobody tells us what to do, yet we're the best ones for the job. So how is it that we don't know, yet we're the best ones? Like nobody can mother my children the way that I mother my children. I don't care what my mother-in-law has done. I don't care what my mom has done in the past. They can't mother my children the way that I can, yet I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So in going through situations and scenarios, because kids get sick, but in going through a situation like I did last year with my son, for a week long and just trying to figure out like how do I relieve him from the pain that he is going through, it's tough. And I would consider myself a pretty tough person. But when you cannot take that pain away, when you have to sit up in that hospital bed for days in and days out, and all you want is relief and fun and happiness for your children, then it's kind of like you pray and you keep going and you pray that at some point, the sun will shine again, everything will turn over. But the good thing and the blessing in it is that you have a support system. And so in-laws, parents, my husband, he is an anchor. He is everything to everybody. And just like I said, just having that support system, having those people around to make things a little bit lighter, it doesn't take the weight off, but it's definitely something that is helpful. So you just keep going.
Have you ever felt like you have lost yourself in being something for everybody else?
Yeah. I think there are times and phases that we go through, whether they be, moments or whether it be days when you need that mommy moment. You have moments where you're like, wait, I'm taking everybody. Because guess what? As mothers, as wives, we're we take inventory. They take everything else on, but we have to take the inventory, and that inventory includes different departments. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I heard someone say that different areas of life, and you
Yep.
just take and you compile all
You the
that.
project manager
Yeah,
for
you're the
real.
project manager. And so just in that, it's just like, oh, it's a lot that you have to just think about and manage, and you just do it the
The
best way
best
you
that you
can.
can.
Yeah.
What season do you feel like you're in your marriage right now? Like if you had to define what year is this for y'all?
11.
Ooh, year
Mm-hmm.
11. What season is year 11 for you?
We are definitely in a season of what are we going to do next? What is going to happen next? Financially stable, emotionally stable. Our children are a little bit older where they have some independence, but we have to teach them that the older they get, the consequences change. So it's not just a paddle on the hand. When you're 17 and you do something wrong, somebody's gonna, there's gonna be different
Consequences.
consequences. And so in teaching them differently, we have to sit down with each other and see what that looks like for both of us. So
Have there been challenges in the difference? Like, have you all had differences of opinion in terms of how you're raising your children?
there have been challenges. We have differences of opinions because I'm a mom and he's a husband, and he's a father.
Oh, I was gonna say,
I'm
wait a
sorry.
minute now.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. He gonna be like, yeah,
Was that a slip
no,
or?
that was a slip. I'm sorry. I'm a mom and he's a father.
Gotcha.
And so, even in that slip up, it's just like,
That was.
oh,
I felt like there was some truth in that. Okay, but
no,
we
and
gonna
he's like the best father. I tell my kids, it's like, you don't even understand.
what y'all
Like,
got. Y'all
yeah,
are
you don't
blessed.
even
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
And he is I can't say more than enough about him, because as a father, we have a son and we have a daughter, and both of them need him. I'm not saying that children don't need both parents, but I saw something before that said mothers raise their daughters and love their sons. That hit me like a ton of bricks, because I think about the people, the men in my life, and the dynamics that they've had with their mothers. And sometimes it makes me, a little sad. Sometimes it makes me happy. But, there are things that we do as mothers that we kind of get in the way. And that's tough, because those are my children. That's just tough. And do you have two?
I have two sons.
Yeah, that's what I thought. We get in the way, and I can't teach my son how to be a man.
Yeah.
And see, my son is a third. And
Okay.
he's
Okay.
a third for a reason, because his father is great and his grandfather is great. So in that, like, he is his own person, but he also has greatness.
He got something. He has to uphold that.
He has
Yeah.
to uphold that.
Mhm.
So there's a meaning behind the name and who he is as an individual. I don't want to stunt that. So regardless of how I feel, how hard my husband and his father is coming down on them, I got to get out the way, and that's hard.
It's hard. I saw a clip of of it causing contention in the marriage
Mhm.
because the wife is like, I think you being too tough.
Yeah.
You how you're talking to him, you're roughing him up, and it's needed,
Yeah.
but it is hard
It's
because
needed.
I want to be like, but my baby, and
Yeah.
and he's two. My oldest is
Mhm.
two, so we ain't even
Yeah.
talking about nothing,
Right.
right? He's a
But you
2-year-old,
are.
but it's like
Mhm.
it's necessary.
It's so
And we are going
necessary.
to reap the benefits of a true father,
Yes.
right? Raising
Mhm.
these children
That's
and
right.
not just a man in the house, because
A
that's the
true
difference.
father, because
That's the difference.
like you said, we're in Atlanta, and there's a stigma, and they also see way more than we saw, and we saw a lot, but they see so much more. And this world is, I always say there's a lot more good than bad, but at the same time, we must prepare them for this world, whether it be my daughter or my son. I'm glad for who God blessed me. I'm glad for my husband.
Right?
Look, I'm glad for their
Right? 'Cause
father.
baby,
So
it's a
yeah,
lot.
it's
It is
a
a lot.
lot.
Do you feel like you are having to raise your son and your daughter differently?
Um, Yes, I do. Because it's different for both of them. It is. It's, I mean, what they see is going, their perspectives are different. They're different people in general. And I think that children teach us, a lot
Hmm.
about who we are
Who we
and
think we are.
yeah, and who we think we are. That is true. And so when it comes to my daughter, she is growing into a young lady, and I have to teach her, what it's like. Because if I allow music videos or Instagram to teach her, or, hot girl summer to teach her, I don't know what I'm gonna have on my hands. And so,
Right.
or her friends, because
Or
that's
her friends and her friends' mamas.
right, or and her friends' mamas, because that's what happens. If we don't talk to our children,
They still
guess what?
talking. They talking. They
Still
just not
talking.
talking
They
to
just
you.
not talking to you.
Hmm.
And so we have to teach them differently. Like my daughter, she's very outgoing, very outspoken, but my son is very much like laid back and to himself. He's not gonna come to you. My daughter might, my son won't. So there's a different approach that has to
Right.
be taken for
Right. Right.
each
Right.
child.
Okay, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Since you do have I've only asked this. I think I've had this conversation maybe twice, but I'm determined that anytime I get a mother that has both, I'm gonna ask.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go.
Yeah.
If your son or your daughter decided to date outside of their race, would you have the same opinion for both or not? Like, would you be okay if your daughter wanted to date a white boy? Would you be okay if your son wanted to date a white girl?
I would be okay.
Okay.
I would be okay because I have different, races of people within my family.
Okay.
And
Okay. Okay.
so,
Okay.
I would be okay. Of course, people are like, yeah, I want you to date somebody like your mom, whatever that
Do you
means.
have
Or
a preference or you're just open? Do you feel like you have to
I
just
have
be
a
open? Do
preference.
you feel like I feel like it gets tricky once the family, once you have like a cousin that has married outside and now the family is just diverse, you got to be careful with what you say. You got to be and I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Okay.
It's okay
Okay.
because it's okay not to always be politically correct. I do feel like, I mean, I have a preference, but even in other people's households, they got a preference too. So
That's
it's like, who's gonna say it first? If you're asking me, then I can answer. I
okay.
have a preference only because there are things that it's like, okay, either you're going to try to explain and nobody's really going to be able to relate to that. And then there are things that maybe they will be able to, but at the same time, it's just like, I have a preference, but it's all good
You have a
if
preference,
that's
but you're
not,
accepting.
I'm
You're
accepting.
open.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm open.
I'm closed.
You are? Okay, so how do you relay that? What do you say?
I don't know, and that's the challenge because the truth is, I know from how I was growing up that if my
Mm-hmm.
parents were adamant about something, that's gonna
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily make me want it, but it's gonna make me curious.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? Why
Yeah.
can't I do that? What
Yeah.
is that really like? Like, what are you
Yeah.
trying to keep me away from? So I don't want to be so adamant that my sons are like, well, I'm gonna just do, well, let me just see what it is. I know you don't
Right.
want me to do it, so I'm gonna do it because you
Right.
don't want me to do it. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do that. My, I guess, hope or prayer is that me and my husband just do such a great job of showing them
Uh-huh.
the beauty in their blackness.
Absolutely.
That there is no other option, that it's not
Absolutely.
even. But my son goes to Montessori school where
Yeah.
he now there's another a black girl and another black boy, but they just showed up. Like,
Yeah.
he's been there since August, and
Mhm.
for the longest he was the only. So
Yeah.
he didn't have a choice. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of times that is the situation that we put our kids in
Mhm.
because we quote unquote want the best. And a lot of
Mhm.
times the best isn't the black version of
Yeah.
things. So we
Mhm.
put them in these environments where they're the only, or they're not the only, but they're one of few.
Yes.
And so their options are very limited. And
Yes.
it's like, well, what do you expect? These are the choices you've given
Mhm.
them. So you can't now be mad at the choice they've made with
Exactly
what you've
right.
given them. So I think it's just something we're being intentional about.
Yes.
And conversations are going to have to be had at
Yeah,
the end
you
of the
have
day.
those conversations, but I think that, and like you said, we have made those choices for them, especially with certain environments. And we live in an area where they are oftentimes the only ones. But then what I made a decision to do, or what we made a decision to do at the end of the day is engage them into different activities
outside of the school
outside
or
of the
the
school,
neighborhood. Yeah.
or and so while they are becoming aware of their environments, we are also teaching them how to advocate for themselves and how to be confident in that how to be confident in areas where it's just them.
It's just them. Yeah. It's
That's a
tough.
conversation.
It is a conversation because we are now at the place where we are blessed to be able to afford to give our children these lives, but it's like, are you not setting them up for failure? Because again, we're just doing the best that we can do.
Yeah.
Like we're doing the best that we can do, but what are the repercussions of the best? Like
Yeah.
what's going to be on the back end of the
That's
best?
right.
So I have, I have family and even friends whose kids are now at the age where they're going to prom or they're going off to college and they're making choices that are a reflection of these environments.
Yes.
And now the parents don't like the choices, but it's like you put them there.
put them
What
there.
else? They literally didn't have a choice.
That's exactly
This is
right.
all that they have. So it's
So,
tough.
It is tough. And yours are small, and you have boys. So it started off with us with our daughter, and our daughter being confused or not understanding why her hair wasn't straight and blonde. And her hair is the exact opposite of straight and blonde.
Right.
And so we were like, okay, no, let's just have this conversation at 2. How do I have to have this conversation at 2? And so got through that. But then we ended up moving to a different area where it was even more, predominantly
Non-black,
white.
yeah.
And so the dominant culture existed, and though she felt confident in who she somewhat was at 5, when she went to kindergarten, she was unable to relate to. No, let me back that up. Her teachers was unable to relate to her. Because that's what happens. You might see a child and say, oh, they remind me of me. But when you're the only one of us in a room, and I'm not sure if you've experienced this, but I know I have,
Yep.
then people will respond as if they can't relate to you. They want to know about you. They want to be close to you, but they don't really know.
Yeah.
And so that was her experience in kindergarten. So we then took her out and put her in a somewhat international charter school. So very much more diverse. But then we realized that even when you do that, you have to consider, sometimes the socioeconomic nature of what can happen there. So let's just go back to if somebody has more than another person. So if my daughter goes to school and she says, oh, my dad used to play in the NFL, that might make so-and-so feel a way. It's like you're better than them. When she's just saying,
this is just her experience.
Yeah, this is her experience. So then you're dealing with a whole different type of potential prejudice with people who do look like you. So then you have to say, okay, now I have to weigh this, or now I have to look at this, because now she don't have no friends.
Right.
But now she doesn't have any friends with people who look like her. So do I now take her back over here with people who, so-and-so understands, because guess what? Her uncle is a basketball player. I don't know, anything. And so it's just like, it's this life that we're creating. Yeah, I grew up in a predominantly Black community and went to HBCU, then went off to Georgia, and it was just like, okay, I know how to adjust in certain environments, but the world isn't like, oh, these are middle to upper class Black communities anymore. It's just like we're kind of spread out, like you said. Sometimes to certain people, because it doesn't look like you, because it is a dominant culture, then that might be better, but that's not always true.
It's not always true. And I think that it's just conversations have to be had, and outside of, because for a lot of people, like the schools that your kids go to, it's a reflection of like the area that you live in. But I think being intentional about having friend groups, right? Having, me and my husband joke all the time, like our kids are gonna grow, they're gonna have rich friends. Like even if they're not going to school with these people, because of who we are connecting with, right? It's like you're still gonna have a community, and that is important. It's like, where is the Atlanta HBCU, like the elementary HBCU? Where is that? How can we create that so that our kids can be surrounded by excellence, but it looks like them? Because I think that is the vision of a HBCU. It's
Yeah.
like we're operating in excellence. I don't know if your experience was excellent because you
Yeah,
left.
no. I'm
Okay.
looking at you like
Okay.
that because
Okay.
it
Okay.
exists. And you may not know because your oldest is 2, but it exists.
It does exist
Yes, it exists.
here in Atlanta.
Yes.
Okay.
So you have to, you have to find these groups. Like we're a part of Jack and Jill.
Okay.
And sometimes Jack and Jill, sometimes it has its pros, sometimes it has its cons. But as far as our experience in Jack and Jill, our chapter is very much active and dedicated
Okay.
to our children being leaders and having that community.
Okay.
So they'll go and do activities and events where they are they're doing community service, or they understand that they're more fortunate in a lot of different cases than others, so they're giving back, or or they go to a Black doctor's office, or they
Okay.
go and visit the state capitol, or they go and help people register to vote and things like that. So it's like it exists, and
Okay.
there's just not Jack and Jill, but there are so many different organizations that are like that
Okay.
with children who look at there was one mom who sent me a picture of my son. He's in basketball camp this morning, and her son ended up being there. So then they were connected because they're like, oh, I know him
Yeah.
from that. So it exists. You just have to go find it.
Being intentional about it. Okay. Not just letting life happen, but
Yeah.
being
Intentional.
intentional. Okay. Is Jack and Jill, what I've heard about Jack and Jill, is it like a sorority?
No, you know what? It's a commitment
Okay.
more than anything.
Okay.
And I'm not Greek at all, but I do have a lot of Greek friends and things like that. So I understand that is a commitment and what they have to do. So in a sense, it's a group of
Is it like an
mothers.
initiation? How do you join?
So you have to be
invited. See, okay, I thought. Okay, I
yeah,
thought so. Okay,
so you have to be invited, but there are organizations and groups where you don't necessarily have to be invited. And so you do have to be invited because, of course,
you want to
it
keep
costs.
it, and you want to keep it.
And you want to keep it
Yeah.
to people who are going to serve, like to a dedicated group of mothers or members who are going to make sure that their children are active and understand the hierarchy and governance of things. And so
Are there like membership requirements? Like, do you have to be a mother?
For Jack and Jill, yes.
Okay. I didn't know. I mean, I don't know. So you have to be a mother. Do your kids have to be a certain age?
No,
Is it for
they start off, I think, at it might be 2.
Okay.
2 to 18 or something.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay.
But guess what? When they graduate out of the program and they go off to college, we have so many teenagers. We have a girl who won Top Chef, who lives in our area, who's a part of our chapter. She's going off to school, and I think she might be going to Princeton or Yale or something like that. But it's it's not HBCU, but she's going off. And what happens after they get out of school? They have these families in other states and other cities that they can, in the event that they need someone.
Yeah,
so I like that aspect of it.
It's like a village.
Yeah,
it's like creating the
village.
village that if you don't naturally have one, it's
that's correct.
Getting to be a part of one. And I've obviously heard of just the benefits of for the adults to be in as far as the networking, but I imagine that trickles down to the kids, and that's what you're teaching them is the value of relationships. Right. Exactly what we just were talking about. They're already establishing these relationships. They're growing up with these people, and for people who, especially here in Atlanta, it's so many times that I've come across people who went to like Clark or went to Spelman and they stayed here in Atlanta. What that does for your career is just like, to have that foundation, people you've grown with, like you literally were like rubbing elbows with the next who's who, the value of that. I think if we're more intentional about teaching our kids the value of that, you're literally like starting those relationships now. Homeboy who he's at basketball camp with, like that might end up being and so it's like having those relationships is so important, but we aren't I guess strategic or even really understanding what we're doing. We're just kind of doing it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and it's like you said, it's the value in it is so, and I think that's why people have started to kind of manufacture that because they're realizing that the value of collaboration, the value of partnership, the value of who you're connected to. My father-in-law has this saying that it's not, connections are better than money. That's what he says. Connections are better than money. And so it's not about the money at the end of the day. It's about, if I need something, it's not going to be the money that oftentimes gets me there. It's going
Gonna
to
be
be the
that person.
connections that
Yep.
that I have created
Yep.
and that I have established and made.
Yep.
And it's rang true for me. I don't know about, a lot of other people, but just in, me coming here, I know a lot. There are people that you and I both know, and it's like, oh, okay, there's that connection. So we
Yeah.
could the conversation could go further. And when it comes to business and when it comes to, I mean, real estate, it's just, there's so many different facets that you could talk about personally that would touch other people, that it's just like, you don't have to know real estate to really, get into the conversation. So then that takes you somewhere else,
Yep.
because then you're like, where you from? Where are you from?
Chicago.
Oh, yeah, Chicago. And then you say, oh, I'm from, I know so and so from Chicago. And then there's a connection from there. And then
Yep.
there's a
Yep.
connection from
Yep.
there. So it's all.
What social media was supposed to do. Because
Yeah.
that's if you use social media, and I talk a lot of shit about social media, but it's been a blessing, so I can't. It's not all bad. But what you are supposed to do on social media, if you're doing it the right way, it should lead you to conversations and connections and relationships and all of the things. But I think we're starting to shift like away from the fakeness
think
of
so?
social media. I hope so.
Well, I hope so
I
too.
think people are getting tired of it. For me, because I started my business before Instagram, right? But Instagram definitely helped me to grow my business and build my brand and all of that type of stuff. But it's not sustainable.
Yeah, it's not.
Having a social media brand is not sustainable, I don't think. Not when life is lifing and you evolve and you grow and but you are still, like, people are still having that expectation of you showing up the same way that you have been.
That's true. So
Yeah.
no, I don't think social media is sustainable when you're trying to create a brand or you're trying to go with the same narrative, and it's just like, if it's authentic, it's authentic. And thankfully I've had the opportunity to grow, hopefully it's authentic.
Right.
Hopefully
Yeah.
it's authentically. Of course, you don't get every bit, you don't get every piece of my life, but at the same time, it's just like, I want it to go away because I have children. Go away.
That part. I'm
Go
like, what's
away.
gonna be next
Right.
though? Because if it goes away, they're gonna replace it with something.
With
I'm
something.
like,
what's next?
what is it gonna be? Because I don't want to be the mean mom, but y'all are not doing this.
No.
You're not. What's your rules? What's your social media rules? Or cell phone or whatever.
So they do not have cell phones.
Okay.
My daughter is turning 10, and she's asking for one, and I'm like, no, you're gonna get this little gizmo watch that you could text me, and if I need to pick you up, and this is that and the other, where there are limitations. You got 5 phone numbers in it. You can't send but so much, and so there are no cell phones, but they do have iPads.
Okay.
And they get their iPads, well, during the school year, only on the weekend.
Okay.
And if you do not take care of your responsibilities, because priorities are a big thing for us, and it's like priorities and then whatever you want to do. So you need to make sure whatever I have asked you to do, chores, whatever it may be, they're not consistent, but whatever I've asked you to do, you get that done so that you can see your iPads on the weekend. And that's pretty much it. They have restraints and things on the iPad, but still that doesn't cut out some of the craziness. And so I can't stand the YouTube shorts.
That thing, because girl, once you start it, they coming. It's like you don't know what you're gonna see next. Never ending reel. What about dating though? What's your rules for dating for your kids?
I haven't got there yet. Y'all haven't thought.
I know I am. Y'all haven't thought about it yet.
So you gotta go through this in phases.
Do you know Sherry Riley? You know who that is?
Sounds familiar.
She's amazing. She's amazing. Her episode has not come out yet. Okay. Well, it might be by the time y'all see this. But one of the things that she said, her daughter's a teenager. Don't make me lie about how old she is. But she said something that I'd never heard before, and I'm going to share this with you because you have a daughter. One of her rules is that her daughter has to date while she's in her house. She wants her daughter to start dating and relating to boys while she's under her roof so she can coach her through that process. Yeah. And I thought that was just the total opposite of what my mother and not that my mom didn't want me to date, but they weren't encouraging it. And I just thought that was like such a profound and intentional way of being a part of the process. Because I think for a lot of, I'll just speak for like the girls I grew up with, a lot of our parents were strict. Yeah. To the point where they were so strict that the moment you stepped foot out of that house, like the moment you graduated high school and went off to college, you were like out there. Like you were wild because you couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I know girls like that.
Right, right? And it never worked out. Like Don't do that. It's not gonna
Yeah,
work out.
no.
But I think that that's like the opposite approach of like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna try to shield you from something that obviously you're gonna do anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think that I'm gonna adopt that when I have a daughter.
I
We'll
think,
see.
yeah, I think her rule is my expectation. I think my mom was strict. My parents were strict, but we dated within,
Within the
yeah,
confines
within
of,
the confines,
yeah,
because like you said, most of the time, when you get to college or go on post high school life and you see people wilding out, it's because they had this
their parents
very
thought that they was just,
confined,
yeah,
yeah,
they gonna do it. That's the thing.
life.
Either they're gonna do it under your watch or they're
Hmm.
gonna do it out in these
Right.
streets.
And it's
And
natural for your daughter or your son to like, someone.
someone, you can't
Yeah.
even say the opposite
You
sex
can't say that
anymore.
anymore
You can say it
because
on
you're
here.
gonna,
You
yeah,
can say it over here.
it's natural for your son and daughter to like the opposite sex. And that's fine. And I'm okay with that.
This
So when you start crushing, come let me know because
That
I want to
part. I
know.
want to
It's
know. Let's talk
fine.
about
Yeah,
it.
let's
Let's
talk
work
about it.
through this.
Yeah,
Let me tell you how not to get
right.
played, right?
Exactly.
Let's talk about it.
Exactly.
Okay, so my last question is for the single ladies
Okay.
because a large percentage of my audience is at the space, and I don't think you experienced this because you met not married your husband, but you met your husband a little earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was 30 before I met my
Mm-hmm.
31 when I met my
I
husband.
think I
So
remember your
my little my story,
what's it
my
called?
the Single Wives Club.
Yes, I've
Yes,
been
girl.
following you since way
From
before then.
you an
Yes,
OG,
that's
triple OG.
good.
I didn't even
Yeah.
know that. Okay, so I went through this experience that I can relate to y'all when you start feeling like, okay, not only is the clock ticking, I'm tired of getting these invites to baby showers, weddings. I don't like, why not me? When is
Hmm.
my time? I'm starting to lose faith. I'm tired of dating these men and it's going nowhere. Like, I remember those thoughts of just like, God, am I the one? Is it just me that you forgot
Uh-huh.
about? For that woman that's going through that right now that's watching, and I'm sure you have friends, like we all know people that it's just like, girl, where is your guy? Like, you
Yeah.
are so great. What is your advice for maybe what they could do more of, maybe what they need to do less of, maybe a mindset shift, like anything that you can offer as wisdom from a happily married woman? Like, what can you share for the single ladies?
My first instinct was to say, get away from them friends, but I'm not going to say
You
that.
can say it.
I'm
You can
not-
look. You can say
no,
it.
no, 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 no. In all sense, I was single probably about 5 years before I actually, started dating my husband. I was single, living life, enjoying it. So first and foremost, you need to enjoy life. Stop waiting. Stop waiting because a man is going to find you, but you also have to be in position. So I've definitely prayed. I prayed that, he didn't come before it was time because that's the worst thing that can happen
Yeah.
is that a man or whomever can come before it's time. The right one can come before you're ready. And so you just have to prepare yourself. I remember thinking when I met my husband, like, oh goodness, I wasn't ready for God to send me this man. I need to get my credit together. So it's just small things like that you think of. It's like you got to position yourself for what's coming, whether that be love, whether that be business, whether that be relationships and partnerships and things like that. Just get yourself together and get yourself ready because it's gonna come, it's gonna happen, and you're in the right place. You're in
I
the right
love
place.
it.
So,
And it's so funny that you mentioned that credit thing because
mhm.
when I had the Single Wives Club, that was one of the things that it was like, do you want to meet you don't know when you're going to meet him. Do you
You
want to
don't.
meet him? And then you
Uh-huh.
have to explain all this shit that you ain't got together.
Right.
No, why not just
Exactly.
work on that stuff now?
Now,
Right?
work on it
So
now. Go to
great
the gym
advice.
now.
I don't want to go to the
I
gym.
know, but we don't. I mean,
Do you work out often? That arm looks like it's been worked
You know
out.
what? This
That arm is
arm,
looking
because
good.
for a year after a reality show, and I know we don't have time for that, a year after we did a real estate reality show
Uh-huh.
on OWN, I didn't do anything. That took a lot.
What was
And
your
so,
experience?
oh, you
Was it
know what?
awful?
It wasn't. At the time, I felt like, whoo, this is too much. I did not plan for this because, the drama comes because once the cameras, lights, everything turns on, people turn up. And so, overall, it was a great experience. Nobody ever has to call you and say, hey, can you do this or that? And so, with the group of women that I work with, some I still have relationships with, some I don't. But overall, I feel like we had it was a good experience for me. I'll speak for
Do you think the
myself.
benefits outweighed the BS? Would you do it again?
I would do it again.
Okay.
So I'll answer that. I would do it again because I was so scared when I did it the first
Were
time.
you?
And yeah, and now that I've done it, it's
You
done.
ripped
And
that Band-Aid off. You can do it
I
now.
ripped that Band-Aid off. I was so afraid because I wanted to represent my family well. I wanted to represent my husband well. I wanted to represent my children, and
How do you feel like the
friends
world
and
perceived
clients.
you?
I felt like they received me pretty good, because it was me.
It was really you.
And as long as I went into it as if it was me and not anybody else, then I was okay with that.
So you didn't open up a can of worms because ever since the Single Wives Club, I've gotten
Yeah.
people hit me up like, I'm casting for this.
Mhm.
I've done, whatever the interviews are when you're in the process, all of that stuff, I've done it.
Yeah.
So I've considered it, but I'm not a dramatic. I'm not a catty person.
Yeah.
Naturally, I'm not
Mhm.
arguing. I'm not argumentative.
Oh my goodness.
I'm non-confrontational. So
Yeah.
I would always tell them like, well, I'm not going to argue with people. Like, I'm not going
Yeah.
to I'm not going to do any
Yeah.
of those things.
Mhm.
And then, they never call me back. But I always wonder, like, is that just was that a part of your experience? Like, did they try to pull that out of you, or did they let you be your natural self? And then if drama came up, it just happened to come up.
You know what? I don't think that was their intent. I don't think their intent was to make it a drama-filled show. I think that when you put an ensemble of women together, that some people automatically feel like that's what they need to bring to the table
Okay.
because they don't feel like their stories are good enough.
They don't have
And that's
anything
not
else. There's
true.
no substance.
Yeah, and the reality is that you just have to bring yourself, regardless if you feel like it's enough or not. It's enough.
Mhm.
And so I realized after the fact that people didn't feel like their stories was enough, so they just came
Trying to make a new story.
Yeah, trying to make a new story. It's not necessary.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
so
talk more about that. I have other
yeah,
questions.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So for the people, do you only do luxury real estate? Because I was about to say, tell
I
the
do
people.
all. I really do.
Okay. So
all.
if they're not ready for the luxury life
If you're
yet,
not ready for, you know what, buying a home is a luxury. Period.
we could end it on that. Buying a home is period. I
Period.
love
It
that.
doesn't
Okay.
have
So
to be a
regardless of what you're in the market for, you do. Again, don't judge me if I have this wrong. Can you be a buyer's agent and a seller's agent,
I
or you have
can,
to be?
and I am.
You are both.
Mhm.
Okay, so look in that camera and tell the people
Okay.
how
For
they can
the
find
people,
you.
I am a selling agent and I am a listing agent. That simply means that I work with buyers and sellers, investors, all realms of real estate. There's nothing that goes untouched or that I have not experienced or done in my years as a luxury real estate broker. Because now, as of last year, I became a broker.
Break down what that means.
So a broker just, you know what? In simpler terms, it means that you have a little more education and a higher designated license, and I can actually own my own firm. Right now, I'm with England Volkers Atlanta, which is a global firm, which I absolutely love because I'm a mom, a wife, and a boss, and so that gives me the freedom to be able to move about a little bit better without all of the liability, so smarter. And so, yeah,
Do you have a desire to have your own agency?
you know what?
Or what would make you become a broker if you didn't want to have your own agency? I guess is a better question.
What would make just because I knew that I for a long time I knew that I could be a broker, and in the event that I decided that I would then branch off, then I could
You have the
have my
option
own.
to do
Yeah,
that.
I have that
Okay.
option.
Okay.
So I always have
Gotta always have options.
Yeah.
I love
Mhm.
that. So how can they contact you?
You can follow me on social media at Tiana Harrison _Lux Partners. And I'm also at www.tianaharrison.com.
Check her out, y'all. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. Make sure you share this episode with a friend and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any more bomb shows. See you on the next episode. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming content. And take it a step further and go ahead and join our private community over on Patreon, because it comes with some pretty bomb perks, including early and discounted access to our upcoming events, behind the scene exclusives with some of your favorite guests, the opportunity to call in on an upcoming show, the chance to vote on topics and guests for brand new shows, and I'm even giving you unlimited access to my vault of business classes where I'm teaching you everything from Airbnb to developing digital products and everything in between. And you can get access to our Patreon for as little as $5 a month, okay? Get in where you fit in, and I'll see you on the inside. Peace.